After all the work that we do, we need to deliver these frames of video somehow. Let's take a look at how we can add these compositions to the render queue to export our work in a way that can easily be used either by our clients or by other applications. After you're done with your After Effects work, you need to export it so that others can use it. Let's go ahead and create a new composition here, and I'll just call it Export. And DV is fine, and the length is fine. We're going to shorten it a little bit later. Let's go ahead and create just a quick shape layer, maybe a small circle or something. And that's good. I'm going to change the color of the inside, maybe to a green. And that's it. I'm just going to rename the layer Ball now. And there you go. Now I'm going to keyframe its position so that it starts here on the left. I'll keyframe it and then it moves to the right. It's just going to go left, right. And I'm going to add an expression to this now. So I'm going to Alt or Option, click on the stopwatch, and now I'm going to use this expression language menu. And under Property, I'll choose Loop Out Duration. And where it says Cycle, I'm just going to type the word ping pong. And there you go. If we preview this now, you're going to see that the ball is just going left, right, left, right, left, right. It's just bouncing from one side to the other. One of the advantages of using this type of expression is that if the client comes later on and it says it's too slow or too fast, well, we can easily change this by just moving these keyframes closer together. I'm going to go ahead and shorten this composition, maybe to 5 seconds. So at this point in time, I'll press the letter N, which of course shortens the work area bar. Now I'm going to go ahead and right-click the work area and I'll choose Trim Comp to Work Area. That's much better, much manageable. So now let's imagine that this is perfect, this is what we like, and let's go ahead and export it. So we have a composition named Export. Let's go ahead and go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. Now we see the render queue here at the bottom of the panel, and notice that the comp name, which is Export, is selected. On the render settings, you're going to see that right after the words render settings, there's a little triangle. This is a drop-down menu that we can save our presets in here. Right now, we are not going to use any of these presets. We're just going to click on the words Best Settings, and we're going to create our own settings. When you click there, a new panel opens up. And of course, you can change any of these options right here. For example, quality, we can change it from best to draft to wireframe. Not always do we want best. Sometimes we want the quality to be less so that it renders faster. Sometimes we just need to give the client a proof of how the work is going. So, maybe best wouldn't be the best choice for that because it would take several hours to render. The same goes for the resolution. Not always do we want it full. Sometimes we want it less. The size is 720 by 480. That one is fine because that's the size of the composition. And you can read the disk cache, or you can just set it to the current settings. So you can use proxies or not. Proxies are files that look and act like the file that you're using, but are much lower resolution, so that when you're working with your project, it renders really, really quickly. And then at the end, you can just tell it, like right now, use no proxies, and because After Effects knows which file is a proxy and which one isn't a proxy, it's going to just replace them for you. Under Effects, you can turn them all on or all off, or some on or some off, which would be the current settings. You can also choose to ignore the solo switches or not. The same with the guide layers. Sometimes you don't want to see the guide layers. Actually, you hardly ever want to see the guide layers when you render your composition. The color depth you can change 8 bits per channel to 16 to 32, or you can just leave it to the current settings. So far, the great majority of videographers and graphic animators use 8 bits per channel, but there are some that use 16 and even 32 bits per channel, so make sure that if you're working for one of those clients that you choose the correct bits per channel, and you can change that also in the project settings. You can change the frame blending and the field render in here. By default is going to be set to whatever you had it set on the composition. You can change the frame rate as well. You can use the composition's frame rate, or you can use a different one. Now, most of the time you're not going to want to do that unless you're going for something for the web. There are many cases in which animations for the web are rendered at 10, 12, 15 frames per second, and of course NTSC video is 29.97 frames per second, PAL would be 25, and of course film is 24. You can change the motion blur settings, and of course you can change the time span. The time span would be either renders the whole composition or just the work area or whatever area you tell it to render. If you choose custom, then you can change custom over here, and maybe you just want to render 1 second or 2 seconds instead of the entire work area that may be 5 or 6 seconds. So once you're done with that, just go ahead and click OK, and now it says custom best settings. I'm going to make this a little bit taller so we can see it better. Since I changed some of these settings, we can go ahead and click on this drop-down menu, and we could choose to make a template. I could call this, for example, Luisa Rendering 1. And now this would appear in the drop-down menu so that I don't have to every time go and check on this. This is just now one of the presets. If you click to the left of the word render settings, you see a little condensed version of what we just saw before. Basically, this is just at a glance all the settings that that particular preset has. And these look good. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Now let's go to the output module. I'm going to click on the word lossless, and of course that's going to open a different menu very similar to the render settings one. In here you can change the format. You can choose from a number of different file formats: Photoshop, Sequence, QuickTime, Radiance, JPEGs, etc., etc. For this particular one, we're going to choose QuickTime. Post-render action, you can import and replace the usage. For example, you could maybe export something a little bit differently than what you had, or maybe you want to export a particular composition, and then every time that was nested or used again in another composition, it's just going to be replaced by the rendered one. And of course you can set a proxy. So this is one of the ways in which After Effects knows that you have a proxy, is because it was created from within After Effects. For the video output, you can choose the different channels, which are RGB, just the alpha, or RGB plus alpha. And this is important because if you are exporting this for compositing on some video, maybe in Final Cut Pro or in Adobe Premiere or whatever other application may be using this file, then you are going to want to choose RGB plus alpha. Otherwise, the transparency that you thought you had on your video is not going to be there. The depth should say millions of colors plus. If you see that it doesn't have the little plus sign next to the millions of colors, then you're not exporting the alpha channel. So that's kind of important. The alpha can be either pre-multiplied or straight. Depending on which editing system, or depending also on the kind of animation that you're rendering, you may want to choose one or the other. A straight-on matted is usually what is preferred for Avid editors, and of course pre-multiplied is used as well, so it depends on what you're doing. Let's go ahead and click on Format Options. This is the codec that we're going to use, this time for QuickTime. So these options here for the codec vary depending on which format you're using. So video codecs for QuickTime come in many different flavors, from Apple ProRes to Cinepack, Component, DV, DVC Pro, etc. Animation Apple ProRes 444, uncompressed, are all considered lossless compressions. Every time you compress the video, you're actually losing a little bit of quality. So the less you can compress it, the better the quality of the video will be. And that includes, of course, anything you make in After Effects. One of the issues, though, is that the less compressed the video is, the larger the file size. So, you have to come up with some kind of codec that will work. I deliver most of my After Effects work as QuickTime with an animation compression, and it's usually used on Adobe Premiere or on a Final Cut Pro system. You can change the qualities in here. You can also change the keyframes of the codec, not to be confused with the keyframes in the timeline. These are codec keyframes, and of course the bit rates. This is all good, so I'm just going to go ahead and press enter. There you go. You can resize the video if you choose to. I'm going to not resize that. And of course you can crop it. Of course the difference between resizing and cropping is that when you resize, you're making everything smaller or larger, and when you crop, you're just cutting things out. You can choose to have audio output or not. In this case, we don't have any audio on the timeline, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And when you're ready, just press enter or return, and there you go. And we can save this preset like we saved the other one, but I'm going to choose not to do that this time. I can also add another output if I click on this plus sign here, so that I can output it, say, as a QuickTime animation compression and say a FLV. So it's going to take both of those output modules. It's going to first render one and then render the other one. And as you can see on the file name, the first one output is going to be export.mov and the second one is going to be export.flv. One is for Flash and one is for MOV, and you can keep on adding different output modules. For example, I could add maybe one for, say, H.264 Blu-ray. And now it says export.m4v. That's because I have the output set to comp name. You can access that and other naming options if you click on the little arrow next to Output To. Also, if yours says that your output is not yet specified, click on that to specify where to output your movie to. I'll be outputting my file to the desktop in just a minute. Once I'm happy with this, I can click on any of these names and I can change them, and I can change where After Effects is going to save them. I can create my own folder for them, and then I just click on render and just watch it render. As it is, I'm going to delete these and this, and I'm just going to export this one as an export.mov, and I'll save it onto my desktop. So I'm going to click on the words export.mov, and I'll go to the desktop and I'll just click save. All I have to do now is click on render, and you're going to see that it's going fairly fast because this is a very simple and uncomplicated animation. And now we'll see what that animation looks like. File, import, file, and on the desktop, there it is. And I'll click on open and I'll create a composition for it. And there you go. This is a rendered movie.